On the Eddie Moore Automotive Group hotline, CBS 4 and Fox 59. Mike Chappell joins us. So it's kind of weird. I've been kind of all in. I mean, even with the craziness about Antonio Brown, I think a lot of this is an act to get what he wants, all right? But I am steadfast against anybody wanting the Colts to go out after Le'Veon Bell. Does that make sense to you? And again, I think in part it's because for some reason I feel really good, and I don't have a problem with the backfield present time with the Colts.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't. First, I don't think that Ballard goes out. Will really pursue either one of them. But if you've got to tell me to go after one of them, I go after Antonio Brown. Both of them are going to cost you, 13, 14, 15 million. Well, Le'Veon Bell's going to want. He walked away from 14.5, so there's your bottom line to start with. But boy, nowadays, to invest that much, no matter how great of a talent he is, and this guy's a great talent, I wouldn't do that on a running back. Receiver, you could talk me into it. Although, again, you've got to go in. Let's say you decide to go after Antonio Brown. I think that the compensation would be the least of your worries, whether it's a second, which I doubt, or a third-round draft pick, fourth-round pick. That's the least of your worries. And really, maybe the baggage is the least of your worries. It's going to be the contract. He's not going to play for $12 million, non-guaranteed. He's not going to do it. So you've got that to worry about. Are you going to pay a 31-year-old, 30-year-old receiver, I don't know, $14, $15 million a year with 20 or 25 or 30 guaranteed? I don't know. And then is he looking maybe at a suspension to start the season with his off the field stuff? So, but if you nail me down and go after one of them, I'll go after Antonio Brown. What he could do for this offense would take it to the next level. Which I don't know that you could say that about Le'Veon Bell. I think he'd be a great addition. I mean, he's better than Marlon Mack. There's no question about that. But I think Marlon Mack's pretty good. But if I had to go after one, it'd be the wide receiver.
Do you think that Antonio Brown is that crazy, or just putting on a lot of an act to get ultimately what he wants, and that's out of there?
Well, he's running a risk of making people think he's that crazy, because that's just, you don't, anything that GMs can put up with stuff because they're GMs and they're sort of away from the field. Head coaches hate distractions. They just hate them. No matter what level it is. So first you'd have to decide internally, is this guy really off the reservation, or is he just sort of, manufacturing things to get himself out of it? But he's been doing some of this stuff long before this. Remember the locker room thing where he taped something or something during Mike Tomlin's post game.
Right.
So I mean, that's what you want, really. And one thing I would be wary about, and whether this was
listen, McAfee almost got Andrew Luck naked in the locker room, and everybody laughed about that.
Yeah, that's you're right. You're right. But I remember one thing that Tony Dungy told us when there was talk of maybe the Colts pursuing Randy Moss. I think it was Randy Moss back in the day. He said, the best indication of what a player is going to be is his history. To get a player, and we had this discussion with the guard, his name escapes my mind right now, about, well, if he comes here, he'll change how he's been. No, this is probably, at this point of your career, this is who you are.
Richie Incognito is who you're thinking about.
That's it. So you would have to go in with your eyes wide open, and that's why I say when you bring in either one of those guys, they're both going to want some significant guaranteed money. And you're going to guarantee a running back who can either lose it in a hurry or whatever, or maybe you can get by with someone who's not as good but certainly reliable. Or you going to invest in a wide receiver and who can be a transcendent player. Again, I go back to the wide receiver, but boy, you've just got to go in with your eyes wide open and realize that neither one's going to be a slam dunk. Neither one but I would rather bank on the receiver. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Marvin Harrison or Edgerrin James, and that would have been a tough call. But now here today, I would risk Jim Irsay's money and Frank Reich's locker room on Antonio Brown more than I would Le'Veon Bell, and to me, it's not even close.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. This is not often a position that we talk about would be a need, but if indeed these reports are accurate and Landon Collins is not long for staying in New York, could that be a likely type of scenario where he would end up here? And would you like to see that happen if indeed he's not going to be back there?
I wouldn't say of all the guys that might be out there, I'd take him first, because if Clowney or Demarcus Lawrence is out there, then they go to the top of my list, or even Dee Ford would be at the top. But boy, I tell you, Landon Collins, holy smokes! What was that? Philip Dorsett's year? They could have had him instead of Philip Dorsett.
Yeah. No, they didn't even talk to him. Yeah, I actually had Landon Collins on a couple of years ago, and he said the Colts and Ryan Grigson didn't even reach out to him.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, wouldn't you like the old mulligan on that one?
Yes, you would.
You can do that in a lot of drafts, but
yep.
I just think this is a guy that he's 25 or 26, and he'd cost you a boatload. He'd cost you, I don't know, $12 million a year. Would you want to pay that for a safety? Yeah, maybe. He's the one that's most intriguing. I've seen things lately, though, where one of the Giants beat writers said that they would expect him to be franchised, and then he won't show up until he needs to be in camp. That's why while this is great for us to talk about, and it gives you time to fill on your show, until we see who's going to be franchised or re-signed, it's just talk. It's interesting, it really is. But the idea of one of these guys, one of these great pass rushers, or even Collins being out there, I just don't see it happening. But we beat the dead horse. Only John Gruden lets elite defensive players hit the market. So the Colts are going to find that elite guy somewhere else, or look into him in the draft, because I just don't see those guys being out there. But I'm telling you, I'm on board with you. Landon Collins, if he's a free agent, I'm calling him up and I'm offering him a boatload.
All right. Since you brought up Dee Ford, and we're all thinking Dee Ford's going to end up back in Kansas City, right? And we'll get to Demarcus Lawrence in a minute, because I don't think there's any way that he hits the open market. But let's say Dee Ford.
Justin Houston.
Yeah, and that's, because you're thinking that Kansas City may have to end up choosing between one or the other. You stay with Dee Ford, right. You let Justin Houston go. Would Justin Houston be the type of guy that you would consider coming here because of what he has done, getting after the quarterback consistently in the past?
Well, and you connect the dots with Chris Ballard's time in KC as well. And then I've not done any research on Houston, how old he is. He's got to be north of 30. He's got to be. But I can think of a couple of pass rushers who were pretty good past their age of 30. Julius Peppers, he had some great years later in his career. So I would that's one that you simply have got to do your due diligence, and then it would come down to how what's your grunt level on how much you would invest, because the top end free agents are going to want the upfront money, because that's all they've got going for them on these big contracts is how much you're willing to guarantee. And there's maybe a handful of guys, and again, that's how you're going to have to get your pass rusher, your proven pass rusher, is in some regard maybe gamble on a guy that's a little bit older. But I tell you, what someone like that could do if he's still able to play at a high level to this defense. Everything that they've had to do to create a pass rush has gone counter to what Eberflus wants to do. Blitzing is not a big thing in his defense, because it compromises the back end of your defense. So if they can get that pass rush up front, it just improves everything. And if you can get a Dee Ford or a Justin Houston, and from what I've read from Kansas City, one of those guys are probably available because they can't afford to keep them both.
Yeah. They're switching to a 4-3, I think, as well, aren't they, with the new defensive coordinator?
I think so. So I think that's sort of how you get those guys when a team can't keep them both, or they're switching or whatever. And that's why you connect. I was looking at a wide receiver who was a Tyrell Williams.
Yep.
From San Diego, from the Chargers.
Yep.
And you just know that right in Nick Sirianni knows the guy, 6'4", 210 or whatever, and he's got deep speed. You always connect dots. Go back to the Griggs and Pagano years. You connect the dots on who they bring in. A lot of times there's that connection, and you're going to invest. You're going to take a risk in free agency. Limit your risk by knowing the guy. And whenever I see the list of free agents, I try to see, well, did Frank Reich know the guy? Did Chris Ballard know the guy? Sirianni, Ed Riverplus. And if those guys know the guy, either they're going to go after him, or the reason they don't go after him is they know something about the guy that's not appealing.
Well, since we're on the subject, Mike Chappell joins us. What about a guy that may not be long for the Dolphins, who seemed to be long on talent but has not come anywhere near to the expectations? And I think he's around 6'4". I have to check. Devontae Parker float your boat at all as maybe a wide receiver, not number 2, obviously, but somebody that might be able to help at 26 this team moving forward?
Maybe that's the kind of guy you bring in. Again, I think on guys like that, it's how much do they want. I would, like we talked, I would like to see him make some announcement that they re-signed Dontre Inman. I really like what he brought to the offense. He was the surest guy. Well, I mean, I went back and looked, and Luck's rating was like 130 when throwing at Inman. He just caught everything. So if you bring him back, you've got that number 3/4 guy. Is Parker a 2? I would say no. But the more depth you can get, I just don't know if they're going to land that over the top number 1 guy. I just don't see that. But the better you can get below TY, the better off you are. And maybe Deion Kane comes back and whatever. Maybe a first or second round picks a receiver. They have got to address the receiver. You know, we beat this horse to death last offseason, and we got Ryan Grant. So congratulations to both of us. So you and I can spend about 5 minutes every Thursday talking about it.
They're not listening. They're not listening to us over there, are they? Doing what we say. What the hell's wrong with them?
I don't know. All we need to say is Ryan Grant, do better than Ryan Grant, which, in all honesty, it wouldn't take a lot to be better than what he offered last year. He was banged up, but he was never, I don't think, what they expected him to be, even when he was healthy.
No, I mean, listen, you look at Dontrell Inman. Dontrell Inman was striking gold midseason compared to what Ryan Grant had to offer there. And
he was almost I hate to use the word savior, but what Inman did with that offense in mid-October, because they were looking for healthy bodies, because everybody was getting hurt. Remember, Marcus Johnson's hurt and Ryan Grant's hurt, and all these guys are going in. T.Y.'s banged up. He was a great addition. What would they have been without him down the stretch? So I just think if he wants to be here, they want him. Then it's a matter of finding that middle ground on a respectable contract. But why Dontrell Inman would not come back here if he's given a reasonable contract, which reasonable is in the eye of the beholder. But where's he going to find a better spot than here, where he knows the offense, he knows the head coach, he knows the coordinator, and he's got an elite quarterback. That's ideal.
So Mike Chappell, CBS 4 and Fox 59, and he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Yeah, clearly they're not listening to us regarding wide receiver whatsoever. I do hope that they put a little bit more thought and emphasis on it this year than they did last, because I think everybody recognizes that the expectations going into last year were minimal at best. I mean, it was like a play hard, 500, that'd be great type of season. The expectations are a lot higher going into this year. So that's I would start there.
And go back and look at the expectations that every year that, and I think we talked about this last week and the week before, every year that Luck's not had shoulder issues, they've been at least 10 wins in playoffs. And that's when you've got that quarterback, that's got to be your bottom line of your expectations. We're going to win 10 games. That's what we got to with the Manning years. You know, you're going to win 10 games because you've got the quarterback. Then make the group around him better. Luck hasn't had even remotely the supporting cast that Manning had. Not even close as far as skill players or running game or their offensive line. Yet you still won 10 and 11 three times. So give him that second quality receiver, and then fine tune the offensive line. You need depth on the offensive line. I like maybe add a running back. I like the running back group. I like that they're young and they do different things. But boy, what a solid number 2 or a 1A receiver would do to this team is pretty impressive. Can you expect another 13 touchdowns from Ebron? I don't know. I would say no. Will Jack Doyle be back? We think so, but you don't know until he's out there. So you've got to give him another receiver. You just have to.
Where do you put the expectations of next year? I mean, right now, before we know really anything, I mean, there's nothing been retooled, no free agency. But, I mean, is it at a minimum winning the AFC South next year?
Well, it's 10 wins, and if that's enough to win the South, I don't know, that'll at least get you the wild card. But, I just until Jacksonville figures out its quarterback situation again, maybe Nick Foles makes a difference if he goes there. I don't know. But Tennessee's kind of backsliding. In Houston, they should be up there. But this team, they have got to contend. They should contend with the AFC South. 10 wins with this quarterback, and just with the returning players, the defense will get better. Anything less than 10 wins to me is a bad season. It just is. So add a few pieces, couple of pieces, 2 or 3 pieces on defense. The defense needs help. Despite the fact it was top 10, top 11, whatever it was, it needs help, secondary, whatever. But add a couple pieces on offense, and this team will be. I've already seen most of the advanced odds for the Super Bowl, and aren't they like 5th or 6th best odds for making it? And those people out in Vegas, they know what the hell they're talking about. So they definitely should be challenging the AFC South and more. They just have to.
What's funny about that, too? The folks in Vegas have the best odds being the Colts to get Le'Veon Bell, too.
Yeah, well, then I'll go against that again. and it's funny. It's funny. The only place I've seen talk of Le'Veon Bell coming here
is Le'Veon Bell.
Wasn't Le'Veon Bell? I mean, that's creating your own market.
Yeah.
So but then that's the problem with social media is it gets out there. Then the next guy picks up. Well, it's been reported that. No, it's not been reported that. It was Le'Veon Bell.
Hey,
so that's where people get lazy and they say that the Colts have this interest in Le'Veon Bell because Le'Veon Bell said so. That's where we have to really be careful.
Did you see Eric Ebron's response to Pro Football Focus having where he was ranked as far as tight ends and who was number 1?
No.
Did you see that? I got to see it. I can't remember. I wish you'd have seen it now, and then it'd be easier explained instead. Now I'm going to have to go search for it. But it was on Twitter, and I think he was responding to where he was ranked as far as the tight ends, and I don't have it in front of me now, do I? Oh, yeah, here it is.
2018. He was third.
Yeah.
Was he third in the AFC South?
Yeah, 2018's AFC South tight ends, highest graded Luke Stocker, Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron is who they had. And I think Luke Stocker had 15 receptions, right?
Yeah, and somebody's mentioned this, is that Pro Football Focus is great stuff to use when it suits your purpose.
Exactly.
They've had some things where I'm thinking,
that's my line. That's my line right there. Yeah, it is great. It is a great thing to use when it backs up what your opinion is, but it's a bunch of nerds in their mom's basement if it doesn't. That's what it is.
Well, there was one year where Lutz got his butt kicked, start to finish, just got ravaged, and they had the Colts offensive line like 14th. And I'm thinking, maybe 14th in the AFC, but some of the stuff I'll look at and I'll say, okay, but then some of the stuff, you use your eye test and you're saying, that's not right. Again, like you said, who's doing this evaluation? And when I saw Jack Doyle, with all due respect to Jack Doyle, he missed half the season. So yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in a lot of that. But
I think that
I guess I cherry pick.
I think that Pro Football Focus is Brad Wells in disguise. That's what I think.
I'm not touching that one. I don't need the Twitter war.
No, I'm not trying to start it either. I'm just kind of joking, because normally when I see that, I see it by virtue of something Brad has retweeted about. So out in
But I did see one where they did one too. Also, was it the best guards, top-rated guards in the AFC South, and it was like the Colts had 3 of them. They had 3 of the top 4. Yeah. Which I wouldn't argue with that.
It's whatever benefits our argument right there, Mike Chappell.
There you go.
You got it.
I cherry-picked.
Am I going to see you down at the Combine coming up next week?
Every day. I'll be there. That's 5 days of my life that I'll never get back. And I kind of enjoy it. But at the same time, when the Colts are drafting 25th, or 26th, what? You're going to say, I think they're going to take this receiver out of Ole Miss. Based on what?
Exactly.
But I do enjoy it.
I used to like when they did it over at Lucas Oil Stadium, and you guys were all stuffed in that corner, right? And then I was out in front, and every time at the end of the day they opened the door, the wind would come in and blow my papers everywhere. It was just like me and the guys cleaning up.
I was talking to a guy at the Combine the other day, and I told him that I said, I remember back in '98 where we cornered Peyton Manning against a bar at the Louisiana State Grill there at the Crown Plaza. There were like 25 of us media there. And now it's incredible, the response and the number of folks that come to town for this. It's incredible how it's grown to where it is now.
Hey, Mike, when I was at the other station, I was not allowed to go to the Combine because at the time that station no longer had the rights to the Colts. So I set up shop over at the Hyatt, right? So I was at the Hyatt, and my friend of mine, Kevin Kuntz, was just like there hanging out, and he was running and trying to find anybody that was around. Well, Bill Polian had sat down to talk with me. He was, then with the Colts. And then Kevin Kuntz came over with Art Rooney. He had Art Rooney, and Art Rooney got over. I swear to God, I wish I had this on tape. Art Rooney got ready to sit down, and he looked at Bill, and he said, well, hell, I might as well get up and go because I'm not going to get a word in edgewise. And he got up and left.
Oh, that's great.
Up and left. It was so awesome. Awesome.
The thing that's got to be so good for most of the media now is, yes, it's important. You've got 300 some players here, but now's when most of the GMs and coaches talk. There's still a few that won't.
Yep.
Belichick doesn't, and Sean Payton has to for a while, but this is when you get access to your coach and your GM. We get Ballard and Frank Reich on Wednesday. But for a lot of teams now, this is when their coaches and GMs are available. So it's going to be, I bet they'll have of 64 of these guys, I'll bet 50 of them talk.
Yep.
And it's incredibly important for your beat writers to be here.
And then everybody, but I'll get Frank and maybe Chris, I guess, but you get all these people, and they're all there to talk, and they all walk right by me. Right by me. I got a microphone right here, and they all walk right by. So, hey.
You got the reputation. Avoid this guy.
Right by me. All right, we'll see you down there next Thursday, Mike. Thank you.